Now I'm going to take one, and again I'll have to ask you to display it. We're going to begin with this. Oh, I'll give you the big one, and I'll have the little one. This is again based in English. So I've got to make, it's a memo. I want to give a lot of information on my first memo. So I've prepared a sheet with a drawing of the house. One of the earliest things that were prepared for that rolling roll. Very high quality, not negotiable, right? So now I've personalised it. I've called it From the Desk of Dorothy, and I am the Office of Management. So I've given some information that authenticates the style. Now there are two styles in this writing, and you were talking about using your next rolling roll with year 7. Mm-hmm. That's year 2, isn't it?
No, year 1.
Oh, they're year 1. So we're talking about 11, 12.
Yeah.
Right. So I've set it up for 11, 12, as you might say. Now you see, you can read what it says. I'll read it from here. You can read it from there. Management. So I've planted in. I'm from the Office of Management. I'm helping them decode. From the desk of is printed. It would be typed if I thought that was easier. But printing is just as good for year 1. And I put Dorothy because that's my real name. It's simpler. I'm not inventing fancy names. Management require a realistic, and that's a discipline laid in, projection of staff required in running the hotel at full strength. There is no concession on language. Real people in the real world don't write to one another with, by the way, you know, I want you to find out how many kinds of people have to do how many kinds of jobs. So that allows me to feed in language within a context that will be thoroughly understood. Some people might say, what's a realistic projection, miss? And I'll say, well, I don't know. Dorothy's always using words like this. Realistic. Well, we'll just have to see. We read on a bit, and it says, and it actually tells you what realistic is. And there are 3 tasks set in this, and I don't expect one class to handle these 3 tasks, because they're very complicated. They don't look much. Please supply 1, details of all departments which will require staff. And then I give them some help. Cleaning, security, shop franchises, hairdressing, valeting. You see, I'm extending the possibilities here. Now, details of all departments which will require staff. Allow the kids to invent jobs. But they've got a house, but I've given them shops as well. And there's a new extension on the end there. It's got some modern windows and so on. So all they have to do, the first class, is look at this drawing and think of, well, how many kinds of jobs would he have to do in there if it was a hotel? And of course, I've mentioned certain different categories. Cleaning, security. What I haven't done is cooks and bottle washers and all the things they'll think of easily. Now that is a job for one class. The second task in this memo is approximate numbers of staff needed for each department. Now you see, that is even more complex. How many chambermaids will you want for... Now you see, they may say, well, we don't know how many rooms. And I'll say, oh, well, wait a minute. There might be a memo on that I can telephone. So I can find out, and then I can say, how many rooms would you like? If you say there's 40 forever. So they're very responsible. Because, you know, we're just starting the hotel. If you say there's 180, there's 180 wages to pay. It's as simple as that. It's real work. And we want for each department section service, because some people are called service staff. Some people are called departmental staff, and I don't know the difference, but we'll puzzle it out between us. They should be called departmental because they're office or whatever it might be, or they're the catering department. but these are servicing their lifts and so on. And then the third one is, when you've told us about the departments and you've told us how many you need for each job, can you advise us on placing advertisements? Newspapers, magazines, you see I've put some question marks here. Trade publications, for example, the caterer. And this is the fourth one, but it looks like it's just in with the third. Ideas for styling, language and format. Now, what are the things the kids have to do to handle this document? You may rest your arm a minute. If we look at the children's tasks, if we take number 1, supply details of all departments which you will require to do the job. First of all, they have to decode a picture and envisage window cleaners, chimney sweeps. I mean, there's chimneys there if they like. There may be cellars. You might put wine in cellars. They're dragging a list out from their experiences, and they'll have to write them down because she wants them supplied. And a realistic projection does not expect them to go wandering around the hotel. It's in your mind. Will you consider this? So the first of all, they have to decode the content. What's the job I'm supposed to do here? Is that anything to do with A-level exams? Being able to sit quickly and realise what the job is in answering this question. It's the beginning of teaching people to scrutinise extremely carefully what is asked of you. And people are going to meet this kind of thing all their lives, whether it's filling in what used to be poll tax forms, filling in for income tax, filling in a doctor's certificate to, and not that, but a thing to get your tablets. People have to do this kind of thing all the time. And it will go right through at different challenges. Right through the school you'll be doing this at different levels, you see. They then, in this case, have to summon images. People doing things, cleaning things, fetching coal in if they think coal will be used here. Summoning experiences, summoning memory. As a teacher, I have to spend time on summoning, helping them summon. Not quickly get your pens, write it down, just make a list, it doesn't matter. It does matter. The longer they unpack it. This class may only get halfway there, in which case what you have in the bank is half a list to pass on to the next shift that you may feel is just about ready to handle that. And you see, for some children, having half a list ready-made is a big help to them because it gives them a good start. They have to name and identify work. You can't just say, general cleaner, because there aren't general cleaners in hotels. There are people with quite specific tasks. I've said this before, but when William Blake said, if you would do good to anybody,
you must do some.
That's right, you finish
it. Minute particulars.
That's right, and this is the minute particulars. You don't just name the work, but you identify the work processes. So you can see these people wheeling these trolleys of linen and carrying dirty coffee cups and filling washing up machines and washing vegetables. It's the work processes. And then, of course, you have to consider the size in the next stage of the workforce. Well, if there's 150 bedrooms, how many people are likely to want lunch on an average every day? And how many potatoes, if you're supplying these kinds of menus, are you likely to need? You get it as complicated as you choose to make it. You're not trying to phase a class so that it can't handle anything. You're saying, with this lot, I could push a bit further. Those two girls could go further. So I'll push them a bit harder. This guy is doing enough to just get his mouth round his pen that gets it onto paper. This is what I meant by you can get a rest and look at your class. It is diagnostic. Now, you see, oh, and I've put a PS at the bottom, as you've noticed. pull your fingers out, they're panicking. Now, that is not so that I say, you know, get on with it. What I'm saying is there's a human nowness to this. And it just allows me to say, oh, I wish they weren't like this. I wish they'd only give us time. If only they'd give us more time. I think we're going to have a meeting about this, you know. So you get into relationships, if you want to, for other recycling. Now, you see, we've got then 4 different tasks that might be 4 different recyclings to do. So how far you'd get on. What I would not do is mix task A with task B. Task B is a totally different kind of thinking. Task B is approximate numbers of staff. It's nothing to do with what the jobs are. It's much more complex because it's to do with architecture. The first one is to do with jobs. The second is much more abstract. And for that, you see, you may have to take this and provide them with a plan of rooms on, say, the ground floor, which you'd have done in advance if it mattered. It would have been not negotiable. Now, let's see what we would have in the bank. I would be functioning, of course, as the personnel department who landed this thing from management and have to blooming well supply it right now because suddenly they've realised they've got to start advertising for jobs. Now, you see, first of all, we'd have a list of all the tasks that a hotel needs. And that's worth keeping on its own, you see. Challoner Hall will require. You can upgrade it by putting Challoner Hall will require. So when you get your list, if you've got a group that think faster without having to stop and write, you can put a big sheet of paper up, Challoner Hall will require, and scribe for them just to keep it going. Later, you may type it so that it's usable, but you keep the big one as well. So you've got the workforce and you've got all the different services to be developed. So you've got a departmental list, you've got numbers intimated against that departmental list, and you'll begin now, where do you think we should advertise for these jobs? So you see, you'll have a list of suitable carriers where we might work on it, and you might from one class get styles, you see. Now, if we take number A, which is a hotel workforce list, I'm sorry about this, but it looks very complicated. Maybe you could just hold it up a minute. That list you recycle quite differently than you recycle the formats for advertisements. It's a totally different problem. So you see, list A will go naturally to a job centre. We are looking for head cooks, bottle washers, cleaners and so on. Now the job centre needs different kinds of equipment. List C, which is advertising formats, will go to personnel at a much higher level. We suggest you use this system to advertise. Don't advertise in this style, but advertise in that style, and so on. D, this one, provide examples of language suitable for advertisements, has to go to graphics. Because this is about layout. It's about printing styles. So you've got a very complex art area here. Now, my problem is to carry all this. You know, it's like suddenly pieces of paper. Do you feel the same? Well, how can I carry it on? So I tried to say, all right, let's be calm, Dorothy. I've got my 4 classes who've each done this. The first class looked at the picture and said, what kinds of jobs? The second class looked at the picture and said, how many of each kind of job? The third class said, what's the best place to find the right people? How do we go about this? And the next class said, or the other class said, and they're all working on the same one letter.
Hmm.
You haven't caused yourself any bother. You've just indicated this is where we're at. They're supplying material for graphics to design advertisements, you see. Now, when you look at the English syllabus and what it's intended to do in terms of, you know, all through the English work, they fall into quite different categories. In one, you'll have a lot more talking and listening, and then you'll have a bit of writing, you'll have a list. But in another, you'll be writing adverts, passing them on, and somebody saying, I don't think this sounds right. So you're talking, writing, and reading all at once. All that is happening together.
Yeah.
My problem is that you have to register. That is what it is that's happening here. And your work then is making it be of quality. You're attending to it. You haven't set them a job and then sat back. You're actually attending to nurturing it along at the quality that syllabus is about, because we're talking about the business of expansion